Hey Hardin County, it's Michelle Lavis, and we had a commissioner meeting today. It is March 13th, Thursday. It's beautiful out. I am loving the sunshine, and as I'm sure everybody else is. So we had not too much today. John Neville and let me get the guy's name. David Stritematter from an ONU professor. They came in to put together a museum plan. So I did miss one of these meetings that they had. So the museum had come in, said that the past 2 years they had gotten like $20,000 grants to pay their part-time people, and then those grants went away, as grants are doing, and so they weren't going to I don't know if they were going to continue on a volunteer basis, but volunteers is not enough to bring in revenue for the museum, and so they were seeing that things were getting upside down. So what they came in, asked for $25,000 for salaries for this year. I think they came in November of last year and was asking for money, and they said no, and so they went back. And John Neville, I'm going to show you this paper here if you want to pause it and read it, and then I'll do this other side. And we have one. I'll go ahead and put the budget up there for you. So I'll just go through this a little bit because this really explains what they said in the meeting. And you can watch the meeting. It is interesting. But they really just kind of went over this outline. So the commissioners told the board that they needed to go back and get a plan, right? They had to have a plan for what they were going to use this $25,000 for. I don't think it's that much of money, but they've obviously put in a lot of work for the $25,000, which in some respects is good that you make people work for and think through a process rather than just making a quick decision. So this is the Hardin County Historical Museum Strategic Planning Committee. It's a long-term sustainability draft. So it was created by John Neville, who felt that a special group was necessary following the November 24th meeting with the Hardin County Commissioners. So David Stritematter, Barb Ringfield, Casey Heilman, Chase Fleece, and Matt Jennings, who's a non-board member, are working together on this. So they highlighted, I think, 4 things. So fund development, museum hours, public outreach, and traditional social media engagement. So those are their 4 things that they're going to look at to increase the revenue for the museum. They went through fundraising. So they're already working on corporate sponsorships through Quest, Stillwater Metal, IP, all these places, right? So getting the corporations involved, organizing trivia nights, fundraisers, and doing, sales calls and correspondence planned giving. So the next thing, so they have fundraising, they have grant writing, so local grants like Community Foundation, statewide grants like the Ohio Humanities Council or Ohio History Connection, and national, the Kellogg Foundation. And then memberships, elimination of the lifetime membership, and then having gold, silver, and bronze tiers for local annual membership. Okay, so that's kind of how they're going to build their funds. Then you have the museum hours. The museum was open from 12 to 4. I don't know what days, random days, and it wasn't for their customer base. So David has gone and called like all kinds of museums in Ohio. And so most of their hours are 12 to 5, Friday through Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are their hours. They will be closed Monday through Thursday with a potential third Thursday programming, 5 to 8. So maybe, catch some of those evening people. And then community outreach will be based on time, availability, and charge. Okay, so making the museum accessible. We have public outreach that would enhance networking with communities, organizations, and schools. So education, they're gonna target 20 annual school program days, K through 12, increase coordination with districts and educators, engagement, increase communication with like McGuffey Memories, Ada Historical Societies, and increase participation with regional, statewide organizations, the Ohio Museum organizations, that kind of thing. So that's their public outreach. And then traditional social media engagement, working with their website, getting their website active, working with Kenton Times, the Ada Herald, WKTN, and then social media, their Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram, and then community organizations like Kenton water bill flyers. They can go out to all the people that have water bills sent to them. You know, I certainly would love to cover some of their local stuff on, you know, community things. So maybe we'll see a couple videos from the museum happen here this summer. So those are their 4 things that they said, okay, these are the areas where we're going to target. This is how we're going to target it. And then the recommendation is to hire a full-time director, because to do those 4 things, right, is going to require a full-time director. So a part-time person is not going to be able to do it. So they've posted the job. They've gotten 3 really good candidates already. I know a lot of people are probably out looking for jobs at this time. They're going to do interviews, meet with the county commissioners, and then in April and May have the new director start. And so they've definitely laid out a good plan to get themselves moving forward. To go over their budget paper, they have 3 things where they say, okay, we're going to maintain status quo. We're going to maintain status quo with a 25,000 gift from the commissioners one time, which has them basically, so status quo is the museum loses their endowment, all their endowment money in 2 years, and the museum closes. And then if they get $25,000 this year, then the museum will close in 3 years, because $25,000 is not enough to hire a director and then move things forward, right? You're just sort of maintaining what you have. And then the third option is they're gonna hire a director for $70,000. They're gonna take the $25,000 from the commissioners and hire that person kind of with your endowment money. So they only have $48,000 in their endowment. And they explained in the meeting that the endowments aren't coming in like they used to. So they used to get more than what they are getting now. And that's just sort of people, you know, and where they put their focus with their money. So they're going to kind of take that money and then hire this person. And then that person is, you know, hitting the ground running, going and generating their own income to match up with that $70,000, you know, and the grant money and all, you know, all the things that we just talked about. And so that third thing, they have the $70,000, and in, you know, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they want to be on their own, making enough to be sustainable. So the fund injections from the county commissioners would be $25,000 this year, $15,000 next year, $10,000 the third year, for a total of $50,000 for the 3 years. So it's kind of a step down process, you know, to get somebody in and working and build up the program so that it can sustain itself. So anyways, very good. I think the David, when he come in, knew Joe, and Joe was very familiar with the situation, so they obviously know each other. And so when they kind of did their presentation, you know, it was all kind of familiar. It was curious that the commissioners are very pointed on some things, like they really hashed out when the director was going to be working and when they weren't working, and and that's really up to the director. If they want to cover weekends, then they would take that time off during the week if they had a special program at a school. So that was lost a little bit in the fact that, until you get a director, you're just saying, they're expecting 40 hours a week. The commissioners overall were very impressed that they had this plan, and they went ahead and they voted yes that they're going to give them. I don't know if they voted yes on all 3 years or if it was just the 1 year. I guess we'll have to wait till we get the resolution in, if it's guaranteed for those 3 years. But the commissioners are definitely going to be keeping an eye, as they do. And I thought it was very curious that Fred made a point. So the county commissioners own the museum building. They pay the utilities, they do the maintenance, all those things like they do for every other county entity. And Fred was very adamant about having a list of things that they've repaired on the museum and all these things that they've done through the years, that was not lost. So it is not lost. We now know that the commissioners have paid about $10,000 a year for maintenance, and I suppose another $8,000 for utilities. So kudos to you guys for doing your job. So that was pretty much it. They were impressed. They got their money, so they can move forward. So that's pretty exciting. Another thing that hopefully we'll not lose. And the museum is very cute. If you haven't been there, please go. All right, so the next thing that we had, which is another, it was kind of a big day. We only had 2 meetings, but there's a lot of information. So evidently, from what I can tell, there's the soil and water, they call it the North Annex, over there behind Simon Kenton. I think it was the Simon Kenton building at one point, but the commissioners own that. They couldn't have classes over there, maybe, I don't know, but this building it was built incorrectly, and they've known about this forever and a day. And so I know soil and water and the USDA is out there, and they've only been there for, I think it's less than a year. And they did all these improvements, right? They went in and they spent a long time improving this building. Well, and it is a little curious. So soil and water and the USDA has been out there in this building after the improvements for a year, and nothing's been done. But now Hardin Hills wants to move their boxes of files. Remember us talking about that last week? Their boxes of files to one of these rooms. Well, they can't, because the room is all moldy and wet and gross, and the floor's like sinking in, the room's collapsing. I don't know. And so Richard brought in Tim Magnum to evaluate the room, right? And he said, open the window, because if you're going to have paper in there. But basically, like, the cinder blocks are offset, the sill plates are offset. There's 2 of them on top of each other. They're supposed, if they were built to code, so I wonder who built the building. That would, what happened on the building of the building. But the sill plate's only like 1 1/8 inches wide. So you have this wall on top of this really skinny sill plate, and it's basically just sliding off and collapsing under the weight of it. And there's maybe not protection on the outside. The whole thing just was not done right, and it's been a long, long time. And now it's all moldy. So have these people been in this soil and water building for this year, and it's just moldy? You can smell it, even if the building's not that big. So even if you're in a different section, it's still a moldy building. So the guy's saying it's going to be $4,500 per 8 foot, right? So they're going to come in, and he said it's going to be pretty difficult, but they're going to come in and like jack the floor up and, take all that sill plate out and put a new one in and shore it all up. And it's, $4,500, and there's 103 feet of this. So I didn't hear what the final quote was, but then the guy went on to talk, you're going to have to put like metal on the outside so that water's not seeping in. I'm assuming it's a crawl space, not seeping in And, you know, some of the trusses are bad, so like you're gonna have to like check those, you know, how much damage they have been done. And, you know, definitely getting a dehumidifier in there. I mean, why didn't you have that to begin with, or like a sump pump or something under there? But he's recommending putting that plastic in the crawl space so that it's completely sealed off, so that these, you know, you talk about environmental health hazards, you know, with our government buildings. I feel really terrible, you know, but why didn't this get brought up when they were doing the renovations? You know, how much money they do in renovations, and they didn't address this, they didn't see this, not until Hardin Hills need to put papers in there. So anyways, quite an ordeal, and a pretty penny to get this fixed. So yet another building, you know, but maybe they don't want to save it, right? Maybe you just kick the people out and say you have to go somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. They could tear it down, just like Hardin Hills. So anyways,